One of the lessons I learned from that could be used for finding your niche even is one of the biggest challenges as a freelance writer was pitching an editor a story, because editors get bombarded with stories. And so in order to get the editor's attention, I would look at the past copies of the magazine. What topics have they covered? Go online, which seems to get the most attention? And then what can I do that's a twist on that? So if you're a health coach and you specialize in people who have diabetes, maybe, what is it about you that you can separate yourself from everybody else who's doing that sort of coaching?
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Cumberbatch of OmarCumberbatch.com. So excited to share today's guest with you. Her name is Linda Melone, and she really just breaks down something that I'm really passionate about, and it's copy. And that was one of the things that I remember when I was just starting out. I had no idea what it meant. It was just something that it was thrown around, and I was just so curious, what in the world are they talking about when they keep talking about this copy stuff? And she is amazing, and she touches on a lot of different things, and even weaves in and out about her use of AI and what she does with her particular business. And I'm really excited to share her with you. As always, please leave a rating and review on iTunes so I can continuously get excellent guests like Linda on the show. And of course, as you may remember from my last podcast, I'm still in the process of putting this book together. It should be out by the end of the year now. I've run into a whole bunch of different things that I'm excited to share with you as far as hiccups. You know, it's always better to learn from others' mistakes, and I'm gladly excited to share some of the things that are really just percolating in that world. It's been an experience, but you know, it's just got to keep pushing forward, and all the other things will fall into place. So let's jump into the show. Hey, Linda, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Omar? Thank you so much for having me on. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, it's going to definitely be fun. I'm fantastic, and I'm really excited to talk about a number of topics that we're going to kind of weave in and out of, but I definitely want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your origin story and how you became such a force in this industry, and yeah, just a little bit about your background, and then we can jump into some interesting questions, because I know you're a wealth of knowledge, and I think the audience is going to get a lot out of you.
Yeah, I'm one of those serial entrepreneurs. Like I've just jumped around to a lot of different things, but long story short, I have always been a writer since I was a kid. Like I would make up stories and get in trouble for doing them during class and all that kind of thing. But there's two things that have been consistent in my life, and that has been fitness and writing. But I started when I was in college. I actually I took a lot of nutrition courses, and I got a degree, a bachelor's in, they call it foods and nutrition. I don't know if that's an official category, but I was planning on going for, I wanted to become a registered dietitian. Mm-hmm. Found out it was just kind of too dry for me. I really was very creative, and I wanted to do something more creative. And then I began really taking an interest in fitness. And so I ended up going down that rabbit hole. And I'm one of these people, when I do something, I do it like 1,000%. I get obsessed. Mm-hmm. And usually I flame out pretty quickly, but it never happened with fitness. It never happened with writing. So I ended up, I was a personal trainer for 20 years. I worked in people's homes. I started in small boutique studios. And then I started working with people one-on-one in their houses. And I have 4 certifications, including I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist, which is something that is seen as like the gold, standard for a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. And I began writing a fitness column for a local business publication. This is back in, I want to say 2002. And it ended up, the editor really liked my work, and he had me doing a lot more writing for him. And so I was writing cover stories, and there were times I had 4 articles in this one publication. And then I branched out into the nationals. So I ended up writing, and at the same time, I was doing personal training. So I was writing for all the fitness magazines. I've been in Men's Fitness. I don't think I was in Men's Health, but I've been in Oxygen, the Women's Fitness magazine. I had a column, a nutrition column, in fact, there. I also do recipe development, and I was doing a recipe for them every month. I did that for a year. I was writing for Better Homes and Gardens and Woman's Day and Self and Shape. And I kind of hit that glass ceiling of I've done everything I can. I've been in everything. And so what do I do now? So I began an online fitness course for women over 50. And it was tougher than I thought. That's the one time when I wish I had more of a business background, because I was doing it like I was kind of running it like a hobby. And I did it for 5 years. And it was just so hard. And I was hiring the wrong people. And I just said, I want to go back to writing, but I didn't want to do content like articles anymore, because the print publication world was pretty much folding up and like literally just going under. Self is no longer around. I don't think Shape is. Oxygen may still be around. I don't know. But everything went online. And even with the online articles, and I was pitching those at this point, I was getting paid like 25% of what I used to get paid as, writing for print. And so I said, let me get into, I've heard about copywriting. And, what happened is I went to a fitness conference, ran into the marketing people from Bowflex. And we just had this good rapport. These guys were really funny. All the people that were there then aren't there anymore, because this was a long time ago. But they said, hey, do you want to, the marketing VP said, do you want to do some copywriting for us? And I thought, well, how hard could it be? I've done content writing. And fortunately, that worked out, because they wanted me to write snarky, kind of be funny, and I'm good with that kind of writing. So that was their personality. So I wrote like those, those catalogs you get in the mail of all like equipment that, a company will put out. I was writing those. And so then I ended up co-hosting, it was called the Bowflex Burn, with a host who was a triathlete. And we would do this little radio show. It was based in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I would call in. And that was for about a year. And then I just began doing more copywriting, but I realized that I needed to learn more. So I started studying with some of the head, really top copywriting coaches, because content and copy is very different. I didn't realize how different until I actually got into it. And so that's where I am now. I figured, why not just niche down into health and fitness? Because I know that better than anything. So that's why I specialize in that niche.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit, and because of obviously being that you are so passionate about health and fitness, you are passionate about writing, what we're looking for when we're out there trying to buy something or just trying to pitch, or if you're trying to pitch something to an individual. Talk about that lingo and the gaps that you were able to bridge just being in love with both ends of the spectrum.
Well, the most important thing I learned is that no matter what health and fitness niche you're in, you need to learn how your customers talk. And I say this thinking primarily about, like, I was targeting women over 50. I'm well over 50. I'm older than I look. And people, they use all the wrong words when they are marketing to women over 50. Like, there's certain words you never use, like elderly. I don't care how old. Somebody can be 200 years old. You just never use that word. I don't care. You just don't ever use it. But when I started personal training, I was in my mid 30s. And I had no idea, like, I'm working with these women, because a lot of times, like, you can't really afford a trainer till you're maybe like in your, early 50s. So a lot of the people I got would turn 50 and then they would start, they'd hire a trainer and they'd go with me. And I would hear things like, they would tell me, I'm not in a rush. There's one woman I'm thinking of in particular. She says, I'm not competing for anything. I don't care about being the strongest or the fast. Like, I'm not. Because I was always really driven. And so I didn't understand this mindset. It's like, how can you not want to be like the best at everything? And now I get it, so the whole thing is you have to talk to the people who you're targeting, regardless of what their challenge is. If it's diabetes, because I've written for companies that there was one company that I worked for that had this, it was a drink, and I don't know if it's still around, that helped fight the side effects of chemotherapy. So I talked to the people who were going through chemo and using this product. It was pretty miraculous. I mean, it cut out like all the nausea. It was amazing. But to hear what they had to go through, there's nothing that I could have read that would have enabled me to feel that empathy as actually getting people on a call and having them talk me through what their day is like living with this. So I think empathy is a huge thing, and to find just really the words that your audience is using. Like with fitness, men will talk about, getting ripped and getting, shredded, and women typically don't talk like that. Like they want to get toned, like one magazine I wrote for years ago said, we don't use the word muscle. It was a woman's magazine. I said, really? And she's like, women don't want to hear that, which I think that's changed a little bit. This is quite a while ago. Yeah. But so you need to know the lingo. You need to know how they talk. Walk me through your day is like my favorite question. What is it like to have this challenge that you have? Does that answer your question? That I probably went into it more than what
No, this is perfect because okay. I think that first off, when I have started the show, someone who was into copywriting, I had no idea what they were talking about. Like I literally, and then she kept like, copy. I'm like, I have no idea what is copy. And then obviously over 200 episodes have passed, and it's just one of the most important themes and ideas that are in this business. So you totally answered it. You dove into it perfectly. And these little nuances are things that we don't recognize. And sometimes we are living in our past lives. And as copy, marketing, niching down, all these things are so important. And one of the things that when we talk about niching down and doing that kind of stuff, it always comes to like, okay, who were you when you overcame X? For some of us, it could have been 20 years ago. We were talking a different language, and we are bringing that language to the new audience, and sometimes we're not connecting. So I think that you encapsulated it very well. So yeah, no, it was a really good answer. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it can be easy to insult people. It's just you have to be careful. You'll never know that you did it because they're going to read your copy and just ignore it, or jump off to another website, probably your competitor. So
very true. And being in the personal training business and health coaching is very similar in the fact that there are just a lot of personal trainers. There's tons of health coaches. They can appear to appear to be swimming in a saturated market. And one of the expertise that you deliver is making us stand out in these industries. So how do you do that? What are some of the ideas that you'd want to bring to the table to just let health coaches right now know who are maybe deterred by that, saying that it's kind of a lot of people in the pool. Like, what would you suggest that we reflect on as far as that goes?
We want to niche down. I think you talk about this quite a bit, and people are afraid of it because they think they're going to limit their choices or their audience. And I always use the example. I had a client years ago, had a lot of shoulder problems, and she needed shoulder surgery. She ended up getting 2 surgeries. She went to a physician in New York City as a woman physician who only specialized in shoulders and only shoulders for women. I mean, how much more can you niche down? And the doctor was swamped. Like she had this waiting list of women who wanted to see her. So that would be something like, that's a good example of, if you're niching down, go down as far as you can where it really isolates, like no one else is doing that. Like for me, I focus on health and fitness because I have experience on both sides of the industry. I worked in it. I was everything fitness, and I'm still at the gym 4 days a week. And yet, I was really immersed in all the writing, the content writing. And I think the content writing, one of the lessons I learned from that could be used for finding your niche even, is one of the biggest challenges as a freelance writer was pitching an editor a story, because editors get bombarded with stories. And so in order to get the editor's attention, I would look at the past copies of the magazine. What topics have they covered? Go online, which seems to get the most attention? And then what can I do that's a twist on that? So if you're a health coach and you specialize in people who have diabetes, maybe, what is it about you that you can separate yourself from everybody else who's doing that sort of coaching.
Mhm.
And sometimes it takes some digging, asking questions, it takes a lot. It takes research, because what you want to do is find, what are your competitors doing? What are they not doing? And then you fill in that gap. And I use I use Reddit a lot do you ever get on Reddit? That's
I do.
like,
Yeah.
it is like the unfiltered, information about anything. So you get in there and what are people talking about on this subject? And what are they complaining about? I do this especially when I have a client that has a particular business and they're catering to, like, I'm recently working with someone who works with golfers.
Mhm.
So what is the biggest complaint about indoor golfing? Like, for example, I found out that people who are practicing and working with a golf coach indoors say they don't swing as hard as when they do outside, and it doesn't translate. People, they had this whole conversation about it. So I told my client, so this is how you want to differentiate yourself. How are you going to at least explain it if you can't resolve it? Because maybe there's no way to do it, but let's talk about it. And she loved it. So that kind of thing, what are people saying? What are they not saying? Where's that gap that you can fill that no one else can?
Mhm. Yeah, that's an excellent way of going about it. I love Reddit, X, formerly known as Twitter's a great space for that. Just like that open, raw communication between just random people on this particular subject and just kind of going back and forth. You do get a lot of interesting market research through those avenues as well. And I guess
Yeah.
that kind of puts in a nice segue. Now that we kind of know what our niche is, now that we kind of know what like these pain points are and the problems that people are going through and how to address them, how does copy come into play? What's the next step?
Well, it depends on what you're writing. So is it an email? I mean, do you want me to focus on one particular type of copy?
Maybe
Right.
just topically, just touch on a bunch. I guess I guess now that you open the door, I guess would be some email copy, obviously. So our posts on social media, perhaps. Any I guess anything else that you think would be an interest of to a health coach, kind of just starting out, and what they might maybe even content on their website, maybe their
Mhm.
homepage, something like that.
Well, I think one of the things to think about is with email. What I love about email is that you get instant feedback. So if you write a series of emails, you can automatically see what's your open rate, what's your click rate. You can measure the results. A landing page, a homepage, website copy, that can take 6 to 8 months before you see if it's actually working, because there's not as many people going to it. But when you send out an email, it's different. It's like immediate. Same with social media. One of the things that I heard recently, because I don't know I think I have my own podcast as well, and I had somebody on that was talking about how you want to have an argument, not an argument, but you take a stance and you back it up with all of your marketing. So what is it that you're going to say and take a stance on that no one else is, or it's maybe not quite controversial, but there's a lot of debate, or there's something where people will want you to explain why you take this stance. So everything should revolve around that. That is, and it's part of your value proposition as well. So if you are, for example, so it's fitness for women over 50, say, like every email would be, I think that the pattern, and I forget what they call it, there's a name for it, but there's like 3 emails of value, then an ask. So you do value, value, value. Have you heard this? I think it's, either 3 or 4. So with my own list, I rarely, because I do mostly custom work, I don't usually ask for a sale, but I put a lot of good information into each email. But it's to help them to really address their audience specifically. And everything should be geared toward, whatever their challenge is. So if it's women over 50, maybe it's more functional workouts than, like, women over 50 aren't so concerned about having flat abs. I mean, sure, it would be nice, but you're on the floor with your grandkids maybe, and you can't get up. I mean, that's a bigger problem than, how many sit-ups you're going to do. So you need to know that. So maybe the email would be strengthening your core, 5 ways to strengthen your core where you don't have to get down on the floor. Like, you can do something like have a little twist on whatever it is, ab exercises that don't require you to get up and down off the floor. Those sorts of topics are really popular. Eating, how to get rid of belly fat and then what would be a surprising thing to add on to that? Like, I know that you talk a lot about not eating sugar. I don't know. I got into some of your blogs and stuff, but I didn't get into a lot of them. So I don't know if you have no sugar in your diet. Do you? Is it no sugar?
I do my best to avoid it as much as possible. I'm close to not having any.
So maybe it's like sweets that feel like you're cheating, or something, foods that make you feel like you're cheating, but you're not, like something that
yeah,
tastes sweet, that does, those sorts of things. Like, what is it that people don't like about, like with working out? What do they don't like the pain, they don't like the self-discipline.
yeah.
So how do you get around that sort of thing?
Got it.
So yeah, I'd say emails are probably the first thing I would suggest doing. Your homepage is the next. I mean, they're all important. They all work together, but your homepage is the most, it's the hardest page to write on your website because you don't know where anyone's coming from. In other words, if you place an ad and you direct that ad to a landing page, you know that you want to pick up the conversation from the ad on that landing page. But a homepage, they could find you through a search engine. They can find you through a referral, LinkedIn. So you have to kind of capture everyone. And that's what makes it the hardest page to write. So you have to get all the nuances in there.
Yeah, no, I've been noticing like recently a lot of people are using those landing pages over their websites a lot because of that. They're pitching a product, a promotion, something, and right to the landing page, and like you said, pick up from where the initial contact, was their entry point. So I definitely appreciate that. And I think, I guess to just touch on social media topically, because you can have a 3 episode on social media by itself. It was interesting, and I've seen what you talk about is like basically writing scroll stopping like headlines for social media specifically. I had a guest on a couple years back. He called it dog whistle marketing. I don't know if you've ever heard this. I think it was genius because, like, a dog can only hear a dog whistle, and it's like, what makes you scroll, 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 and something talks to you and stops? It's like that dog whistle just blew.
Yeah.
And when I saw your caption, that was the first thing that I thought of. So can you get into that a little bit?
The scroll stopping headlines. That's the hardest thing, I think, to do. The thing to consider is that 80% of people are not going to make it past your headline. So you want to spend 80% of your time on a headline. So whether it's the subject line, a headline on your website, what I do, like say I'm writing an email, a lot of times I'll write the email first, and then I'll go through and see what do I think would work best. And this is where I do turn to AI. Like I will say, okay, this is the main points. I use ChatGPT to give me ideas. I use it to brainstorm. I don't use it to help me write, but I'll say, what are some good ideas? And because it always comes up with, you can only pull from what's already been done. So you're going to get the same, a lot of marketing speak and these fluffy words. But
Right.
if you piece them together, which is what I usually do, is like, okay, I like this, I like that. And then it'll come up with something. And then there's a site that is a headline analyzer. I'll plug that in. And I can send you the link to that. It's free. And you just pop in your headline and it tells you a percentage. Like I said, good copywriters usually get 30 to 40%. I forget what it's the emotional impact, I think, of the email, of the title is what they're measuring, because emotions is what help us make decisions.
Right.
So I will, if I'm trying to decide between a few, I will pop them into that, see what they say, and then sometimes I go with it, sometimes I don't. It kind of depends. You still have to use your own judgment, but at least it gets you brainstorming and thinking. So writing down 20 different headlines. I mean, some people say do 50. I never get that many, but like 20, just write them down, shift them around a little bit, walk away from it, and then come back like later on in the day, or even preferably overnight, because a lot of times one thing will pop out at you and you'll be like,
Right.
okay, this is it. And then, of course, you want to test it. What are people responding to? A/B testing. If you're sending an email, I use ConvertKit, and that's easy. You can do it right there. So whichever one is most popular after, I think it's 4 hours, and they just send the rest of your list to the remaining to the winner, they call it, of the headline. It's always about testing, though.
No,
Yeah.
no, I definitely agree with that. And I appreciate you being open and honest about your use of AI, because I think that one of the things that is, especially for a copywriter, is a big concern in the copywriting community, that AI is like a bad thing. You use it for brainstorming, which is excellent. And I do the same thing as well. I kind of put things out there and try to recreate it in my own, language or words and stuff. So yeah, I appreciate that you were honest with that. What else do you think, or where are we going with AI as far as copywriting is concerned?
I think AI is one of those things where first it was, we're all in that honeymoon phase, or we're using it for everything. I think it's starting to kind of find its, at least with me and people I know, you kind of find where it fits into your business. So I have it open almost all the time, because a lot of times I'll have questions like, what's another way to say this? And I'll pop it in there. I don't always use it, but I'll look at it like it's a title, like I just said. I've used it for client interviews. Like if I'm doing a discovery call, I record it, take the transcript, pop it into chat. And I use the one that's $20. I think it's Chat 4.0 or something. It's the one you pay $20 a month for.
Is it worth it?
What?
Is it worth it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? I had a copywriting coach that said, just buy it. She said, stop, messing around with the free thing. Just get it. So I just listened to her. She was my coach. I saw it, and I use it all the time. But I will put in like an entire discovery call and ask chat to pull out the most important points from this. And sometimes I'll ask it, what should I be sure to include in the contract if I have to create a contract from this conversation? Then, of course, I go back and check it. It doesn't catch everything, and sometimes I don't agree with all of it. I've done it many times with my podcast. I will take a conversation, pop it into that, and say, what are the main points? What may be a good title? I don't always love what it puts out, but it gets me thinking. I had a client once that came to me. She said, I have 4 personas, 4 different groups of people I want to target, but the homepage has to include everyone. I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? So she literally sent me a graph. These are the personas. This is what, their characteristics are. So I said, I know what I'll do. Plugged it into chat. I said, what is the commonality between all 4 of these? And it pulled out, this holds true for all 4. And so I was able to use it that way. So I use it creatively, like when it comes to kind of distilling out something from
Right.
conversation or from some research, or creating an outline. How can you create an outline for me on what I should talk about on a particular subject?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly how I kind of use it. I don't like what comes back a lot as far as like the verbiage, the way that it speaks, and I want to make it my own. So like I said, I do
Right.
something very, very similar. I I want to go back to the paid version of this, because I can't see how much better free chat is at this point. But I hear the same thing. Oh, just buy it. It's not a big deal. I was like, so what can it possibly do? And I'm not trying to be a salesperson for Chat GPT by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm always curious to hear people's perspective on why. You're not the only one. Everyone tells me, yeah, once you see the $20 version, it's a no-brainer. But I can't wrap my head around that.
Do you know what's funny is I didn't use the free version for very long. I have a thing about, like, I do believe you get what you pay for. And I just, $20 is not, like, if it was $2,000, yeah, I'd be thinking about it for a lot
Right.
longer. It has a lot of what, I don't know what they call, like, extensions where you can, they're like different chats. I don't know if they call them chat GPTs, but like you can get Dolly, DALLE. It's all these different little extensions. Like you can, yeah, create images
Dolly's
with
good.
it.
Very cool. I like
Yeah.
that program a
You have
lot.
to be careful people don't end up with 6 fingers though, because I've used
You
I've
see
seen some images. I'm like, this does not look like a human being.
that?
But I use I've tried some other ones. You know, one AI I like. Have you heard of Redact AI? Redact
Is that
AI?
the one that's the AI that doesn't sound like AI, or they make it try not to sound like AI? Is that one? Because I know that there's
It
something like that.
it's for LinkedIn specifically. So I don't know if that's what it's if you use LinkedIn, it's
Mhm.
really good. And I don't say that about a lot of these things. Like it allows you to repurpose your previous posts. So I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit
Okay.
and I've been on it consistently for over 3 years. So I'll take a post that was really popular and say, all right, I want to redo this, but I don't feel like going like I'll throw it in there and it gives you 3 versions to in your voice. It says what voice, you put in um your LinkedIn profile. It's not free. What am I paying for? I write down everything I pay for because these things add up so fast.
Oh, man, no.
I don't even know what it is, but it's not that much. But I get a lot of mileage out of that, and I'll just pop something in, and then I tweak it again and add an image or something. But that one I like. Fireflies. That's not AI though. That's the one that records all of your Zoom calls.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's one of
Fireflies.
those things.
Yeah.
I use like Otter AI. That's one that I use.
Mm-hmm.
That's been pretty good. That also transcribes the stuff too, and then you can take that content and put it into chat. Yeah, no, it's cool. No, I'm glad that you're embracing it because, like I said, I had one person, and she's a good friend of mine who was she's a copywriter hardcore. Just said, I don't need it. Like I said, maybe an outline here or there, but it seemed that if she's 10%, you're in the 50%, and you're expanding it into do many different things, which is cool.
It saves time. I mean, if it says, I'm not letting it, it's not writing for me, but
Right, right.
I'm just able to shorten my research time. Yeah, I mean, that's really, and even the copywriting coaches I work with, they said you either adapt to it or you're going to be out of the game because everyone else is going to be using it. And then what?
Right. Very cool, very cool. So I think that to wrap it up, because I promise you it'll be about 30 to 40 minutes of our conversation. That's usually a sweet spot for these programs. Like, as far as a health coach, when do you think that they should start looking for people like yourself to start these kind of services in the copyright world? Is it better to do it as soon as they come out, of their education, getting off on the right foot, maybe a little after they find their voice? What is your opinion, or is there no right answer for that either? I'm just curious of how you thought someone can take advantage of the awesome services that you provide.
I think the most important thing is to have a solid offer because when I had my business, this is actually how I got into conversion copywriting is I went to hire a copywriter. I wasn't doing any of it myself. I mean, I was, but I knew it could have been better. And I interviewed with a copywriter, a conversion copywriter, who ultimately ended up being one of my coaches. And we went through, what she does, what she charges. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a solid enough offer for this to justify this cost. And she said, that's what you need. And so I would say definitely you should have a solid offer and you should know who your audience is. If you really know the niche that you have, and you understand your customers, and you have like a little bit, even some research, because I always ask people like, what kind of surveys have you done? What kind of research do you have? If you have none, you can look at your competitors, but you should have something. You want to have a clear idea of what you're offering and who your audience is. And then I say that you can use a copywriter.
I
That
think
makes
that's
sense.
no, that makes total sense. And just on to add on to that is that if they have all that, the copywriter who they go with job is that much easier so that they can help them get to where they want to go. For you to
Right.
curate all that stuff out of thin air, make beautiful copy, it might not be relevant to what their end
Yeah.
is. And I think that's a problem. And then we do struggle, like especially I think health coaches specifically, and I'm beginning to say this so much that I feel like I'm beating up my brethren up all the time with just this statement is that Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to niche down. It's hard to get a avatar. It's hard to do that. And I think the quicker that we are able to at least do that portion, we can take up services like the ones that you offer, and makes life easier for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I think that I totally got a ton out of this. So I just also want to get the audience on board to look at all the great stuff that you're doing. Please give us your social media handles, your website, any way that we can get in touch with you, and especially if we're interested in anything that you're presenting, because obviously copywriting is the key to a lot of our success. And if they want to jump on and take advantage of some of the offers that you provide, I want to give you the opportunity to let us know all that right now.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. My website is thecopyworks.com. And I have a link tree which has all my socials on it, and I can send it to you. It's linktr.ee/ my name, Linda Melone, spelled Melone. And I'm on LinkedIn a lot. You can always DM me there. And that's probably the best way, or Linda at thecopyworks.com. And I do have some freebies, which I can also send you those links. I have one that's about writing about how to phrases to avoid in your copy, 21 marketing phrases to never use. I have one on how to add humor to your copy. And the third one, I always forget. And but there's three. There's three. So I can send you that link, and then you can. And I have a newsletter, and I have my podcast. I have all of it. So.
And what's the podcast name so the audience knows?
Yeah, B2B marketing and copywriting. Very straightforward.
Perfect. Yeah, so anything you forget, just, you have my email. I'm gonna throw it in the show notes, and then and I'm sure that the audience is gonna take you up on some of those freebies. Again, like you're a wealth of information, and the copywriting is so important. And I just look again, and I had mentioned before how I had no idea what it was, and now people like yourself have enlightened me to the importance of it, and that I cannot thank you and your folk enough, because it's that important.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. All right, have a good rest of the day.
You too.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.